is acknowledgement of women's history.
Whereas International Women's Day has occurred globally since 1911 in an effort to celebrate the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women, and whereas women historically have been denied rights to vote, own property, and serve in political offices and other leadership positions until the 20th century, and
Whereas trans women's identities have historically been criminalized and continue to be targeted by violence, and whereas National Women's History Week was first proclaimed the week of March 8, 1980, and
whereas Women's History Month has been proclaimed nationally since 1995, and whereas women have contributed to the history and collective future of Corvallis and Benton County, Oregon, and
Whereas Women's History Month provides an opportunity to continue the district's growth in learning about the many contributions of all women to the nation, world, and local community, and
whereas education is a necessary component for creating a more equitable and anti-racist community, nation, and world, and whereas the Corvallis School District has made a commitment to equity and anti-racism, and
Whereas the Corvallis School District has a responsibility to honor and respect the diverse histories of our communities, and whereas the Corvallis School District believes each and every student must be celebrated and appreciated for the distinct and vibrant contributions made by sharing cultures, language, ideas, beliefs, and values within a school community.
Therefore, let it be resolved by the Board of Education of the Corvallis School District does hereby proclaim March 2022, as well as each March annually, as Women's History Month in the district, and strongly encourage students, families, staff, and community members to join in existing local celebrations, and encourage all schools in the district to help highlight this month in great appropriate ways, as well as highlight the contributions of all women to the local community, nation, and beyond, both historically and in current times. Adopted by the Board of Directors of School District number 509J, Corvallis of Benton and Lynn Counties, Oregon, at its regular meeting this 24th day of February 2022.
And just as a reminder, we reread the proclamations every year as a reaffirmation of the district's commitments to what they say. And I wanted to say apologies to Judah for missing him on there's a lot of names to write down, I'm sorry. And the next item on the agenda is student representatives report. And I know we have some representative reports. I don't know who wants to go first.
So CV Cheer got second place at state. CV Swim, the boys got first place at district, and girls got second place. And they're heading on to state tomorrow and as well as Saturday for finals. Our leadership class is planning our second semester blood drive, and currently it's set to be on March 5th. Also, the Asian Cultural Club at CV is collaborating with our leadership class to organize a Lunar New Year celebration during lunch next Monday. We're able to buy a lot of Chinese snacks, catering, and decorations using the grant we received from Youth Empowerment and Action Grants. So we're really grateful to be able to have the money to spread and celebrate Asian culture in our school community.
So unfortunately, there was something wrong with the document, so I could not access it. But the main things we wanted to report on was the polar plunge. We raised $1,000 and were able to participate in the polar plunge, and it was super fun. CHS is also currently planning on prom themes, and that's about it.
With our new beginnings, College Hill has been thriving with the help of our student ambassadors who have helped new students acclimate by giving them student-guided tours and doing check-ins as days pass by. We have had new classes for students such as experimental design, which experiments with fruit flies, and after-school driving education. Driving education helps students get their driving license early and safely, with proper education in safe and controlled areas. Earlier this month, our yearbook class was awarded a "Yeah!" exclamation point grant, which will help our class achieve their goal to provide free yearbooks for our school this year. Yearbook has also had a bake and rose sale, which profited over $400, which will go towards their goal of $2,500. We are so proud of our students' hard work and dedication towards our school, and we are excited to see what the future holds for us.
Thanks you all for your reports on behalf of your respective schools, and it sounds like a lot of great things happening. And then the next item on the agenda is the nurses update, and we have Kelly with that.
Hello, my name is Kelly Ward, and I'm one of the district nurses, one of 5 district nurses. We have a couple more back there in the corner who have joined us as well. So I was just going to kind of give a brief overview of what we do for the district. Our main goal is to help support the health needs of the students, all students in the district, and keep kids in classroom as much as we can. We do this by creating health plans to alert staff to any known medical health conditions and different needs that students might have. We oversee the running of the health rooms in each of the schools, help make sure that we have safe medication delivery to students that need medications during the school day. And then we also review all field trips that students go on and make sure that staff are trained to help in anywhere the students may go outside of the school. We help coordinate vision and dental screenings for our students, as well as providing any nursing care to students who have higher needs in the schools. We'll delegate and train staff members to do things that are considered nursing tasks, and then the nurses will step in and do things that we can't delegate to staff, or if staff are absent, we kind of fill in the gaps there. We also do staff trainings to include medication administration, our EpiPen administration, and then emergency medications such as glucagon and seizure training and seizure emergency meds, and then training all the staff in their CPR and first aid. This last year, the state came up with a new student acuity tool to help rate medical needs of the students, which we used and we'll be using again this year, so we'll be able to track medical needs of students and how they change over time, so that should be helpful for us in the future. And then also this year, we started using Synergy for all of our electronic health records, which has been really helpful to kind of keep all of our students' information in the same place. And then I'm still learning how to run reports in Synergy, but I tried to run some numbers, and so far across the district this year, we've had over 13,000 health room visits and delivered over 8,000 medications to students up till now.
So nursing is part of the Student Growth and Experience Department, and so we're super fortunate and appreciative of our awesome nursing team. Who's back here and up here and somewhere at home, but we appreciate all the work that they do for the health and safety of our students and our staff.
Thanks. And do the board have any questions or comments? Okay. I seen Sammy's and then Chris and then Judah. And then we'll come on the, I'll do 3 and then we'll.
Can I start with one and then after a round I go with the second one? Thank you so much. Really appreciate all the work that you and the team do to keep our students literally alive and thrive. And one thing I did not see in the reports, but I would love to get a little bit of understanding, especially in the high school in terms of Narcan and any trainings that either students or staff has on access to Narcan if the unfortunate event happens.
So we go over Narcan training in all of our CPR and first aid classes. And then there's also a safe schools training that we recommend. I don't think it's one that's required, but it's one that we recommend to staff. And so anybody who's CPR and first aid trained, we go over where we store them in the school and also with our health room people, kind of where they can find Narcan. As far as the student population, I'm not really sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you for being here and also all the great work that you're doing. I have been in the office of several schools and I have seen your nurses come in and just with ease and confidence they have come in and just really supported our kids. And I know it's not always easy. The other thing I want to mention and just thank you for is training our health room assistants. They're in there because they are, you know, every day working with kids with all different situations. And again, what I see is, you know, I know it's really busy and it can be sometimes frustrating, but they're working with such confidence that they seem to really, you know what they're doing. And, you know, today I watched a person carry around an iPad that was monitoring students and, you know, she was just there the whole time doing different things at lunchtime and stuff. And so I mean, that wasn't always the case, so I appreciate that. My question is on the vision screenings. So I know you come in, you do these screenings, and then I think you come back a day for kids that are absent. But I know we still miss kids, and a lot of times it's the kids that really need that that screening done at school because they're not always going to get it at home or have an appointment. And I just wonder is there any other way we can support that?
So the vision screenings are done by the Lions Club, comes in and does those. And I know, I'm trying to remember if we've made accommodations, like if they were at one school and we missed somebody, if they had time, if they could maybe go over to the other school and see if a student's there. But I don't know what their flexibility is with that stuff, but I feel like it's something we could probably bring up to them and see if they have an idea for how we could catch some of these kind of stragglers that we miss because they're absent on the days that we're around.
And the schools get the reports and they're also sent home to parents. And so if there is a need in there that a school notices, we have our family advocates and health navigators that go through our student support team process that can ensure we can get kids to appointments, we can locate glasses. There's lots of different programs that we utilize in that side of our work to help meet the needs of students who might need glasses. We've also done that for adults sometimes and parents that need that same type of support.
Second questions go after the first questions of other board members, usually.
Yes, but he asked my first question.
Yes. Oh, I thought I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. I thought you said Sammy had a question. I was like, because I couldn't hear you, sorry. Shauna?
Thank you so much for the work that you do, for the work of the team that you work with, as well as the report you provided us. It was so helpful to see. I was wondering if are there any changes in trends related to student health needs or even staffing needs in terms of that support that would be helpful for us to know about or be aware of as a district, or any big gaps in the support that future looking would like to be able to provide?
Yeah, I think that using this student acuity tool, like over time, that'll help us see as our population has shifted. I think that what we're seeing as far as, you know, students who need day-to-day care is staying the same or increasing, even though our student population is going down. Like this year, I think we have 10 students that are delegated and 2 that are one-to-ones. And so those students that are delegated, if they have to have a trained staff member in the building with them all day. And so, you know, we try to train somebody in a backup for people being out ill and things like that. But sometimes there's days where nurses are in the school buildings covering, and there's, you know, covering for those things all day. So, so hopefully over time we'll have more data, you know, but I think especially for our health room staff, seeing just like the numbers of the amount of kids that they're seeing in their health rooms every day and the number of medications that they're giving to students every day, I think that making sure that we're supporting our health room staff and making sure that we have enough hours in the schools for that kind of thing is really important.
Thank you.
Any questions on this side? No. Okay, go ahead, Sam, you had another question?
Yeah. So something I noticed in the report, despite of the declining enrollments with birth rates and other reasons, we're seeing constant demand on the services you provide. And I'm wondering if we can get context on, is the funding for the nursing program proportional with student population, or are we leveraging any sources of revenue that are unique that can help us support and preserve the services, such as Medicaid or any other sources of revenue that are separate?
That's kind of above, that's higher up than me. I don't know where we get that, get that information.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can get information to you on, because there's complexities in how we put together some of our funding and staffing. So we can all look into that and we can get back to you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't think there's any other questions from anybody. Thank you so much for all the work you all do for the students. I know that's like one of those behind the scenes services that is in high demand and really helps students get through the day so they can continue their learning. And so I just want to say thank you. All right. Have a good night. Okay, and then next item on the agenda is the educational program update. And it says we have a panel of folk.
Yeah, so I'll introduce myself again, just as kind of restarting this. So my name is Byron Bethards. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Director of Student Growth and Experience. And we're going to be calling lots of folks up to come in and out to share lots of parts of our plan. So that's kind of our process for that. And I'm going to let these two folks introduce themselves, and then we'll get started.
Hello, my name is Amy Leeson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the elementary coordinator and happy to be here with y'all tonight.
Hi there, I'm Kim Johnson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the middle school coordinator. Excited to be here.
All right, so on the agenda, you notice we have a lot of time, and because we have a lot to share, and we have a lot of things that we've been working on for many, many months that we're excited to be able to share with you and then answer the questions that you might have. And Amy and Kim are starting with me here, and they're going to kind of be up here with me the whole time, and then other folks will come in and out. And the reason that Amy and Kim are here is we're really talking tonight a lot about our K through 8 programming in our school district, and we'll talk about our future plans and planning that's happening for high school for next year, but we're going to focus in on a lot of our K-8 programs. And so going back to August, and I had been working in this position for about 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and then I was kind of pulled into planning that had been happening for months and months ahead of that time, like a year or more ahead of time, about our upcoming plans of what we're looking at for consolidation in our district. And in that time, I met some of you for the first time and also came to your board retreat, and I asked you some questions, and I asked you about how many kids are in public education in Oregon. Remember that? And how many students are in public education in Benton County? And that was 547,000 or so in Oregon, and about 8,400-ish that doesn't sound right. Maybe in Benton County. And then we know in Corvallis we have about 5,700 or so in our school district. And so at that time, we started talking about, well, what is the future of education? Like, what is public education going to look like in the future? And or what do we want it to look like for the students here in our community in Corvallis? And we talked about the creation of the innovation team and the work that's ahead of us. And so tonight, you're going to hear about a lot of work that's been done from the innovation team that is comprised of staff members from all of our buildings, from our building administrators, from other work groups, from some community partners. This is a true collective effort of lots and lots of different groups of people coming together to help us plan and re-envision what we can do in public education here in Corvallis. So our plan tonight is to go over these things. We're going to talk about looking ahead and looking forward to the future of Corvallis School District through the Corvallis Promise. And in your pile or your stack of papers you have there, you have that with you, and this is our packet here of the Corvallis Promise, and we're going to talk a little bit about this tonight, and so but it's there for you to look at if you'd like. That will be sent to families tomorrow and to all of our staff tomorrow as well. We're going to talk about the K-6 model and what we've planned for next school year. We're going to talk about the 7-8 model and Corvallis Junior High, the K-8 models, and then the planning that's starting to take place for our high school models. And then we'll talk about some of our key highlights of what we're looking forward to for the future. So in our planning process, one of the things that we think about is how do we start to align our investments, our actions, and our commitments and values to all be pointing the same way. And so this slide, we use this a lot, this graphic in a lot of our presentations, and we think about moving from these random acts of improvement to thinking about how can our community, our school district, our staff, our students all know what we're about, who we are, what we're up to, what our goals are, why we do things, and aligning those pieces into our budget and how we spend our money so that we all start pointing towards the same direction and this aligned impact on improvement for our systems. And so the plan that we're presenting tonight helps us in a new way align more arrows than we have been able to do in the past in this direction moving forward. So to help us kick this off, we on our innovation team, we have two of our association presidents that are a real crucial part of our innovation team. They're both educators in our district that hold other roles, but they also represent the members of their two associations. So that's Mary Marshall and Krista Schmieder. And we have been so appreciative of their work on the innovation team because in their work, they can represent a lot of voices of their associations and the staff that they support. And they've brought to the table so many valuable pieces for us to think about and consider. They've also helped collect feedback in other ways for us to represent their members that they represent. And so Mary can't be here tonight with us, but Krista, I'm going to call up to kind of kick some things off with us too. So Krista, come on and join us. Just want to kind of call that out, that those are two crucial members of our planning teams that we've really appreciated their support and work with. Hi.
What's up?
Hi. So who we are, and in the Corvallis Promise document, you can see centered on these three words: achievement, connection, and equity. And when we think about achievement, that's aligning us on a common definition of rigorous academics. Because when we talk from the same place and the same definition, then we can move forward together. Go for it.
Yeah, and I think the connection piece I just wanted to speak to a little bit, because being in the room in the innovation team, and I know some board members have come by and either worked with some of the groups or like witnessed some of the work going on. And, you know, you're in a room full of, 40 to 50 people who are not just educators as their job and their vocation and their calling, but they're also coaches and they're also mentors and they're also key members in their community groups like churches or affinity groups. And to see them putting in this extra effort on top of a full-time job because they care so much about student-educator connection was just really cool to see. And I think it was even cool that some of the ideas that were seeded in the innovation team later are now going to be on the following slides that you see. And was just, it really speaks to the breadth of knowledge in the room and all the different experiences people have had as educators.
Yeah. And then our definition of equity is really about educational equity and making sure that any student can have access to their full potential academically and socially within our system. And so building our, I'm not close to that, building our models from these core pieces here is what has driven a lot of our work. So our Corvallis Promise is really what our commitment is to our community, to ourselves, to our students, and it's really our goal with this is what drives our work forward. And in your Corvallis Promise packet, you can see it goes in this value of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you tell some educators made this? This
lots of feedback.
Yeah.
It was great.
This process was a true like iterative process of cycles and cycles of feedback and feedback and feedback with adjustments based from so many different groups of folks. And so in there you can see our 5 core values. Those come from our first innovation team in 2016. And so that was built, those 5 core values were built with 2 and 3 day community workshops, through community voting and input, from staff input. And so 2016 innovation team, there's a few of us left, are still around from that. That is where that
we
came.
made it.
Yeah.
Survived.
Yeah.
I guess.
That is where those come from. And so those are kind of steadfast in our vision for what we're doing.
And I hope as you look through this, I know you won't have time right now while we're talking, but as a graphic design person, it's slightly text heavy, just like looking at it, but really taking time to read through each of those at some point, because all the educators in the room at the innovation team, when we said we're going to make a promise, we work with youth that when you say you promise something, if you don't follow through, there's like really awful impact on kids. And so when we say we're making a promise, like, we mean it. And so those sentences were picked apart and looked at thoroughly by a lot of educators who were like, if we're going to put this on paper, if we're going to present it at a meeting, if we're going to tell the community we want to do this, like, hey, district, are you going to back us up that so we can do this? And so, like, I don't want you to think anything up there is extra. Like, everything is up there because we were like, this is a promise we want to keep. This is what we want to give to our kids. And so it's going to take a team effort to actually make that happen.
And the way this document is created is all of those pages can also be standalone, right? So they can also be done like standalone individually. And so our values are connected to our board goals. You all know the board goals and the strategies. Those board goals help drive our instructional promises. And in there you can see our instructional promises, and our instructional commitments there come directly from our 5D teacher evaluation rubric on our best practice for instruction and teaching. Those kind of, all those things build into our community commitments, and that is about all students belonging and every student a graduate. And then that all comes together for what we hope that students leave our school district with those knowledge and skills and our one profile of a graduate. Yeah. So just kind of summing that up, and here it is this is our Corvallis Promise, and there's more to come with this. This is the first kind of launch of this, and we're going to keep coming back to this, and you'll see more of this as we move through all of our next steps. So, and those are our commitments to our community, that all students belong and that every student is a graduate. Okay, thanks, Krista. Yeah, okay. So moving into that, and you'll see this in our instructional commitments and promises too, our district programming that we're going to start presenting is really built on these key things. These are from our 5D rubric on teaching and learning, and it's about designing our lessons with purpose, keeping student engagement at the center, high quality curriculum and pedagogy, designing assessments that reinforce and support teaching and learning, our positive environments and culture, and then fostering professional collaboration and family communication. All right, so that's a little wonky on there, but that's okay because this is a hard slide to even talk about. So my mind doesn't always do idioms and metaphors well. So this process has been about finding balance between lots of competing truths and lots of things that are all equally important. And so throughout our feedback, we've done staff surveys, student focus groups, getting community input in like from some industry leaders. We've talked to lots of groups of folks. At the same time, we have other pieces we have to consider around financial pieces. We have to think about our bargaining agreements and our contracts. We have to think about accountability measures, our board goals, our required ODE requirements, our required instructional minutes that are required. There's all of these pieces that go into creating an educational program. And everything, and the thing, we have really great educators in our school district, and they're so passionate about their area and their subject, and they're all important. And for us to create programming, we have to think about these levers in this way. And if we move one lever one way, then another lever might move another way, and then things are out of balance. And so through this process, which we'll continue going through, but where we are is always going back and forth between these kind of levers and back and forth on, okay, if we do this, what does it do to this lever? Okay, but if that lever moves this way, what happens to this lever? And so it's a constant back and forth between lots of groups and lots of people to see how we can get to the most balanced type of programming that we can based on so many different factors and competing interests that are all important. So in our plans as we move into this, there's lots of things that we already do that will continue to be embedded and work within this educational programming update. We have intervention supports that are at all of our schools for students who need extra support in lots of different ways. We have special education services that remain steadfast based on supporting students to gain the skills and access their education. We have a mental health program, which is unique to our school district, and we have therapists in all of our buildings that will continue. You've heard from us this year about our health navigator and family advocate supports. Those pieces continue in our plans. School counseling continues in our plans. Alternative education, like our social emotional growth program, Bridges, and our academies are all embedded in these plans. And you'll see aspects of what Bridges can do in our plans, what SCG and the academies will have access to in different ways in these plans. Our life skills programming stays the same, and our talented and gifted services stay the same. A shift, which has been talked about some, but we want to call out, is with the shifting of demographics at schools. Our Title I schools next year are the schools listed right there: Adams, Garfield, Catherine Jones Harrison, Lincoln, and Mountain View. So those become our new Title I schools in Corvallis, and they'll receive those types of Title I supports for those schools. Have Marcianne come up and introduce herself.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Marcianne, and I'm the Equity and Multilingual Programs Coordinator, and I use ella, she, her pronouns. So tonight, I wish I had all night, but I know we don't have all night to talk about our dual language program. And just to really stress that throughout this whole program, throughout this whole innovation time that we've had together, we have spent a lot of time really talking about our unwavering commitment to our dual language program. I was thinking about our program today, and it was established in 2001, which was over 25 years ago. That's a long time. And throughout all those years, we have made it a point to make sure that we are committed to the amazing work that's happening in our schools. So our dual language program is really the legacy of our equity work here in the Corvallis School District. Part of the things that we're excited about and continue to celebrate is that the students that participate in our dual language program have an opportunity to really hone in on their identity and culture. Our philosophy for our students is to have to celebrate their cultural and community wealth, not only of our students, but our staff and our families. And then lastly, our social justice lens. We want to make sure that we continue to achieve social justice in our classrooms by providing culturally responsive teaching practices. Thanks, Kim. Isn't this a great picture? Our program, our DLI program, has three simple but incredible goals. And these goals we share with other dual language programs throughout our nation. The first is the bilingualism and biliteracy. We want our students to become bilingual and biliterate, and to be proud of their languages that they're learning. Our second goal is academic achievement. We want our students to have access to grade level content and grade level peers and excel in all subjects. And lastly, our last goal, which is amazing, is our social cultural competence. We want our students to have respect, understanding, and compassion for the cultures within their schools. And then, DLI proven outcomes. This is super. There were a lot of outcomes I wanted to share with you, but these were the top two. I know Ryan has shared this before, but when we started our program, it was kind of a flip of a coin of the graduation rates of our Latina students. If you were a student in our system back in 2001, there was a 50-50 chance that you would graduate. If you look at our current graduation results for our Latina students, we've made some significant improvements over the years. So our dual language program is a cornerstone for supporting our students in their graduation rates. And the other proven outcome is the earning of the seal of biliteracy. And earning the seal of biliteracy isn't just a golden star. It's really an opportunity for students to have access to scholarships, to have access to credits when they move on to career opportunities. And when they are in the workforce, being bilingual and biliterate is a value-added asset for our students in our program. So just wanted to share that we continue to be committed to our dual language program, and just very proud of the work that our students and staff have done over the years.
Thank you, Marcy-Ann. We led off with DLI because that is at the heart of our programming and it's not changing. And so that is our commitment, that we are continuing our DLI schools and programming. And the program that we share tonight is that, well, the DLIs are embedded right, schools are embedded right in the programming of what we're doing. And there's considerations from the DLI Advisory Committee, and that has helped us shape our plans as well. So thank you, Marcy-Ann. All right, we're gonna bring Sadie and Tara up with us. Tara doesn't want to sit by me. We worked together for a long time, so. Yeah, and so Amy's going to lead us off about K-6.
All right. This is an exciting time. We've been building up towards this for the whole school year and last fall. So just a reminder, our K-6 schools next year will be Adams, Lincoln, Garfield, Catherine Jones Harrison, and Bessie Coleman. I think it's important to point out that the program continues to be aligned with our Oregon State standards, which drive most of the work we do. Our social emotional learning standards are also part of the Oregon State standards, and that is included in this. We have evidence-based curriculum that is not going away, that we'll continue to use for both math and language arts. And I would like you to just pay attention to thinking about that arrows slide, and as we go through K6, 7, 8, and K8, really some intentional work around alignment without getting in the way of school culture still being school culture. So I think Sadie's gonna kick us off next and talk to us a little bit about K4.
All right. My name is Mercedes Sturbridge. My pronouns are she, her. I teach 4th grade at Adams, and I also think it's relevant that I have a 1st grader and a 3rd grader. So I have both sides of that in my mind when we talk about all these things. So as I was listening to Byron talk at the beginning, and I know I know it's weird that I teach 4th grade and I'm also very quiet, but I use the microphone in class too. I was just thinking, going through these slides, I've looked at them a lot, and I'm like, it's very simple, but that's by design, because time is a hot commodity. We never have enough of it. We can't add more of it. So what we have to do in these foundational grades is really identify, and what we have done, the work we have done is identify what is essential, what do we have to get to help our students grow into these lifelong learners that we strive for them to be. So the simplicity is intentional, so that we can just really hone in on those things that our students they're absolutely essential for their learning. And it sets the stage for their future as they go into 5th grade and 6th grade and on from there, and just creating, you know, solid academics, that SEL foundation, and joy. We talked a lot about finding joy in learning and building off of that, you know, wanting to be at school. So core academics, we talked about how, you know, keeping things aligned to state standards. Literacy continues to be 120 minutes a day with the curricula that's been adopted, and the DLI model stays the same. Their intervention is during what would be the flex block for K through 4, which we'll talk about in a minute, because their science and social studies are already built in to their literacy curriculum. And then math, 80 minutes a day, same with the adopted curricula, and for DLI, it would just follow the current model. Connections and relationships. There's so much work to do here for kids at these ages, and when we can really give them that solid foundation of social emotional skills, so we're talking self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision making, there's so much that goes into that. So thinking about Corvallis as a school district, how can we make sure that every kid in every school is getting, you know, the same pieces, those same building blocks that everyone needs? And one way is through morning meeting and closing circle, which sounds very straightforward, but I can't even tell you how much happens in those little chunks of time every day, and how it builds throughout the year. And it's a great opportunity to build those SEL pieces in. Okay, this one I'm excited about. I'm excited about all of it, especially as a parent. But the 45-minute specials block would be every day. So that would be PE twice a week, music once a week, art once a week. And then the new addition here is STEAM. So offering that once a week with a certified educator who's not their classroom teacher. To me, this builds so much equity for our kids. You know, I'm not the best STEAM teacher in the world. So to know that my students can go and have the same experience as every other 4th grader in my building, you know, not like the teacher down the hall who's like an amazing STEM teacher, but my kids don't get to do that because they're in different classes. I just love this one. And I think that it also really supports the board's goal of preparing students for future pathways. I think this one's really important, and it's a piece that's kind of been missing as a building block. Flex time sounds so like ambiguous, but in my mind, this is the teacher magic, right? When there were a lot of surveys of students and what they remember from elementary school, and to me, all of those things are just teacher magic that you can't put in a curriculum and you can't plan out. You have to know the kids that are in front of you that year and speak to their interests and speak to what's going to spark their, you know, engagement that year and get them excited to come to school. And so flex time being like a guaranteed time built into the schedule allows time for that, you know, teacher creativity that everyone has when they work with kids. And it's where the passion is, I think. It's also the time where we make sure to get science and social studies and health and wellness and the district equity lessons, all those important pieces that, you know, we only have so much time in the day. We have to dedicate that reading and writing and math time, and we need some dedicated time for these things too, because they're really important. Classroom technology. So kindergarten will share iPads on carts. There's cute carts, hold all the iPads. They are portable. And then in 1st through 4th grade, it will stay 1-to-1, one iPad per student, and those will stay at school. And then as far as recess and break times, again, it seems straightforward, but it's just, if you picture, you know, what are we guaranteeing for every student across the district? 35 minutes a day of recess. So 15 minutes mid-morning, 20 minutes usually grouped before or after lunch, and then schools having the option to add 15-minute afternoon recess when and where it's needed and possible. And then 20 minutes for lunch every day. I think that's it.
Okay, my turn. I'm Tara Stroup. I'm the Dean of Students at Mountain View. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also a member of the innovation team. Wrong team. When we started on the equity teams, a lot of our work at the beginning was as a whole group, and then we split off into work groups to who wants to really dig into K4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in high school, and I gravitated to 5, 6 because I was really interested in the potential of what we could do for our students who are going to be maybe staying at their elementary school, but looking to still have like more independence and a different experience than what they've had in K4. And I'm really excited about the work that our team did. So in grades 5, 6, we're looking at taking all of the foundational things that have happened for students academically and social emotionally in K4 and looking forward to the independence and experiences that they're going to be having beyond their elementary schools and how to create that kind of bridge. So that's what our 5, 6 experience is aiming to do. So for academics, one thing that I know a lot of, I heard from families and from students that they're worried that it's just going to look the same as what elementary school has looked like. I was on a bus today where kids asked me exactly that question. Are we going to have the same teacher all day long every day? Because that just kind of feels like we're staying in elementary school and doing the same old thing. And the model that we're moving toward is blocking academic subjects taught by specialized subject area teachers so that students will have a literacy and a humanities block for 120 minutes, a math block for 80 minutes, science and career exploration for 40 minutes. And the cool thing about that is that it will build on the K4 STEAM special and then give further exploration. So throughout the year, students will get to explore industrial and engineering systems, arts, information and communication, health education and human services, hospitality, business and management, and agricultural, food, and natural resource systems through career exploration kits. So students will have different teachers throughout the day for those core blocks, but then on to the next slide, it's still really important to have that connection and community. So the day will still be anchored with a beginning of the day homeroom and an end of the day homeroom, kind of building off of that morning and closing circle for K4 so that you're starting and ending your day with connection and community and continuing to build all of those same SEL skills that Mercedes was talking about that we build and practice and coach and dose throughout K4 because that work is never done. So enrichment and specials at 5, 6 will look like, it will be taught by licensed content specialists. Students will have PE twice a week, which will also incorporate health lessons. Art will be once a week, which maintains that special for 5th graders and adds that experience for 6th graders. General music will be once a week for all students, and then I'm really excited about this. 5th and 6th graders will have the opportunity to take a bus after school to Corvallis Junior High School to do music ensembles with their peers from across schools, which I just think is a really rich music opportunity. And so in addition to having general music, students can also elect to do that after school. And then library once a week will focus on digital citizenship. And then classroom technology for 5th and 6th grade will be iPads. Those will stay at school, but with opportunities to check iPads out to take home for special projects. And then recess and break times, there'll be 10 minutes mid-morning, 20 minutes in the middle of the day connected to lunch. And there you go.
Thank you, Tara and Sadie. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being up here with us. Thanks for all the work that you guys have done and put into this. Thanks for all the teachers that have given their voice. I think I don't have much more to say except just that continuing alignment. And even though I'm super excited about all of the schools being able to have this aligned, they have 45 minutes of this, we have the same math curriculum, they have the same strong ELA and writing curriculum, we're going to have flex teachers, it's flex time, and then STEAM. I don't want to miss that, like, our schools will still have individuality. We're not going to take away the Zumba dance that happens in the morning at Lincoln. Like, that's just part of that school's culture. And so this is just the guaranteed part of the other parts of the day. And alignment of instructional minutes, it's those arrows coming together a little tighter. So thank you again.
All right. Kim is going to kick us off about grade 7-8, and Jared is going to come up and join us too.
So you've heard the word excited a lot tonight already, and I'm going to use it again, and I'm sure you're going to hear it again before the night is out. But it has just been really exciting work to be with all these teachers and hear these innovative ideas that they're coming up with and how they want things to play out and what they want the new junior high and the 7-8 to look like. And so a lot of the pieces that have come together are team-based programs that students are going to be supported by a consistent team of teachers through the house model that we have, helping to build those secure relationship-centered learnings in those classrooms. Instruction is grounded in real-world learning and meaningful project-based experiences, and that will help get them ready for high school as they move forward. You can see the schedule on the board, and Jared is going to talk to us about all the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, because we get to create a new school because we haven't had a 7-8 junior high, so that is pretty fun. So I am Jared. I teach math at Sheldon, and it's been a really fun process to be on the innovation team and to think about how can we reimagine learning for 7th and 8th graders in a way that will engage them and make them want to come to school, because a lot of 7th and 8th graders disengage from school and they decide that, well, I'm just going to slack off. I'm going to do something else. I care about sports. I care about video games. I care about something else. And we want to help them see the value of learning. And I think that what we've put together can definitely help push them in that direction. And so Corvallis Junior High will have 7 period schedule day, 45 minutes each class with a 30-minute lunch. We'll be on the semester schedule. And as Kim mentioned, they'll be in house teams. And within each house, they'll have a consistent language arts teacher, social studies teacher, math teacher, and science teacher that they'll have all year long. And so that is super valuable in building those connections. In our current trimesters, it's very common that I might have a kid in math for first trimester, then they go to another math teacher second trimester, and then they come back to me third trimester. And so I don't know how their learning progressed in that middle portion of the year. So I think this is very valuable for helping students make consistent gains. Talking about literacy and humanities, their language arts and social studies classes will be blocked together, taught by different teachers. What this means is if we look at period 1 and 2, for example, that cohort of students, half of them would be in language arts first period and the other half in social studies. And then those two groups switch for second period. And what that does, it just provides a little flexibility for teachers to create projects that maybe take a little bit more time. And they have, those teachers will have the same prep period so they can build cohesive themes and cross-curricular units that then they can complement one another. So it just allows a little bit more flexibility than we have right now with having those same groups of students just switching those two class periods. On the schedule, it still looks like period 1 and period 2, but how kids are scheduled into those classes will be pretty unique, and I think really going to be awesome for kids to have that experience. let's see. This model strengthens critical thinking, provides deeper communication, and allows them to look at different perspectives. Literacy intervention will still be available within elective classes for students who need that extra reading and writing support. And it's also important to note that the DLI instruction is still going to follow the same model at Corvallis Junior High as it does at LP right now. Moving into math and science, similar to ELA and social studies, those two classes will be blocked together with different teachers teaching them, but the same group of kids switching from period to period. And so that it helps students just make cross-discipline connections between math and science. There's so much that goes together, and those teachers also will have the same prep period, so they can work on really cool project-based learning stuff that they can collaborate on and make awesome experiences for learning. Then we also have talked about at the previous board meeting about some pathways for math, and the 3 pathways, it doesn't really matter which they choose. The goal is that they'll build conceptual understanding and problem-solving skills to support high school, college, and career readiness, no matter which pathway they pick. It's going to happen in all 3 of them. The standard pathway will set students up to be successful in Algebra 1 during their freshman year. The enhanced pathway will set students up to be successful in geometry and data reasoning their freshman year. And the accelerated pathway will set students up to be successful in Algebra 2 or other high school +1 courses their freshman year. And then math intervention, also like the literacy intervention, will be available within the schedule for the students that need that additional support. And a big thing to highlight is this shift allows for, it's really small on that slide, but it's kind of important, is full year science. Right now, our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are only getting science 2/3 of the year. So making that shift, I think, is a really big deal. That leads to PE, which if you look right at the top, it says 2 semesters, including our adaptive PE programs for the students that that option is beneficial. And that's also a change because currently middle school students only have 2/3 of the year in PE. So being able to get that full year of PE is pretty amazing. And then they'll have a semester of health and career exploration where 1 quarter, so if it's first semester, quarter 1, they could be in health, and then quarter 2, they're in career exploration. Through the career exploration courses, all students will explore different pathways for learning that are directly connected to the pathways at the high school, the career pathways. And so that's really exciting to hear. And then they get some hands-on learning with these career readiness kits. And I'm really excited to see what that looks like because I think it has some really cool potential to start kids thinking on like, hey, I want to start learning more about this, and them finding a passion that makes them want to come to school. And so that's kind of the goal. And then within all of this, social emotional learning is embedded, working on pro-social skills, self-regulation, community responsibility. These things will be embedded within literacy or math science block, within the things that we're doing. And then I think the house communities where they're connected with that core group of 4 teachers will also help build their sense of belonging, where they feel like they have those connections with those teachers and that those teachers actually have the ability to get to know them over the whole course of a year instead of like, oh, try one, that was good, and now I'm not in your class anymore. As a teacher that has that happen, I often have kids come back and they're like, well, I really miss being in your class. Do you think I can come back 3rd try? And my answer is always, well, if the schedule gods allow it, I don't know. So I'm really glad that's going to be fixed within this model. So what is happening this week? Right now, it says students will complete an elective interest survey this month. In our buildings, it was done this week. And there is a large list of electives there. And that was what they were given. That doesn't mean we're offering all these electives. It's based on their interest. So their survey results are going to drive how our schedule is built and what electives are actually offered. And so I think that's really cool. Students getting to have a voice and say in how our master schedule planning is put together. And so, yeah, that'll help us narrow that down. And this happens at the for the K-8s as well, where obviously it's not going to be as many options are going to be provided, but the students that are pointed to those schools are still getting to give input, and that's going to help drive the choices that are offered at Mountain View and Franklin. And that leads us to the other piece. The other piece of electives with the music ensembles. So music will obviously continue, band, orchestra, mariachi, choir. These are daily and year-long and grouped by experience level. And we're adding a 0 period option for junior high music that creates a space for year-long advanced orchestra and band that will allow students to opt into another year-long elective during the course of their regular school day. And obviously this depends on numbers, but what it also allows is it allows our students from Mountain View and Franklin to access this, and they can get bused to the junior high to have that, and it's built into the K-8 schedule at the beginning of their day, where it's technically their period 1, where they get to go as period 1 to the junior high, do their music ensemble, and then bus back to their K-8. And so that's really cool for our city. I said all the things on there. Technology. At 7-8 level, we'll have one-to-one Chromebooks that go home. Lots of the curriculum is digital, and we want to make sure kids have access. So that's a big piece behind that. Charging carts will be available throughout the school in the classroom so that they can make sure that it's getting charged. And Canvas is going to remain our learning management system for 7th and 8th grade. And now we have 4 mock schedules. So these represent quarter 1. The first box or first 4 rows is 4 different students, 2 7th graders, 2 8th graders. For quarter 1, what their mock schedule could look like. You'll see that 2 of them have a band and orchestra at 0 period and 2 don't. And then the second area is a quarter 3 example. So it's just shows what a student's daily schedule could look like based on various things happening.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you. So now we're going to move into our K-8 models for Franklin and Mountain View and see how the K-6 and the 7-8 plans and the junior high plans shift and move into our K-8 models as well. So Kim and Amy are going to walk us through that.
So he mentioned our K-8 schools of Franklin and Mountain View, but I also want to mention our K-8 school of Bridges that now incorporates SEG. So that's also considered a K-8 school, and we'll be having a lot of these similar pieces. Amy?
Yeah, I think I might sound like a broken record. Why don't you look and see how this is aligned to our other schools as we're working on this model of our students that are in 6th grade get the same experience at all of our schools. And that I think you'll see throughout the next few slides. So think back to Sadie and talking about K4 and what did that look like in our K6 schools. It is similar in our K8 schools. We'll have that chunk of time for our core subjects, time for the content flex, and students will continue to work towards the same goals. In 5th and 6th grade, it looks also the same. the sample schedules we'll have are pretty similar across all of the schools.
And then in the 7-8 bands that you'll see here in the K-8, they will be very similar to what Jared just presented for the junior high.
I think it's just important to note that what we know and what research tells us, and when we dig into culturally responsive curriculum, all of it is so much around relationships and connection. I feel like I learned a lot of that with Chris's voice in my head. It's like, kids, who are they connected to? What's the connection? Are they having a relationship? And so built into this, all of our K-8 models have intentional time to build relationships with adults and with their peers. I think that's me again. Okay, so enrichments and specials, those aren't different at the K-8 schools than they are at the K-6 schools for the kindergarten through 6th grade. So those are the same that Sadie and Tara talked to you about.
There's that list of electives again. It was super fun today to watch as kids yesterday and today were taking that survey. I could see them popping up onto the spreadsheet and just making the numbers. We had it calculating the numbers to see them go up, and it was just fun to watch. But like in the junior high, the 7th and 8th grade PE, health and career exploration are part of their core classes that they'll have. And then all current 6th and 7th grade students participated in the elective interest survey today, and they will have the opportunity each semester to select an elective that's offered to go into their schedule.
So I saw eyebrows raise a little bit when we're like, but coming to the junior high, and how does that work for music ensembles for 7th and 8th and 5th and 6th? And so I want to break that apart a little bit. So at our K-8 schools, because of the way our fantastic operations director, Kim Patton, had worked magic to create busing routes and bell schedules that allow us to be really creative in our planning to expand multiple options for students before and after their school day, and provide transportation to and from those experiences, so there's not barriers to that type of access. And so what that looks like is at the 0 period at the junior high is the first period for the 7th and 8th grades at the K-8 schools, meaning those students could take that 0 period ensembles at the junior high. They could take the bus from their neighborhoods to the junior high and then take their shuttle bus back to their K-8 schools after that, because there's enough time built in with passing and the time that period ends to get back to their schools in time for their 2nd period at the K-8. For 5th and 6th graders, it's the opposite. So we have buses that go to the Boys and Girls Club every single day after school, which is at the campus for the junior high. And so I don't know what the opposite of the 0 period is. So school is out at the 8th period. So when school is out at our K-6 schools and our K-8 schools, that allows enough time to go to the 7th period of music ensembles for 5th and 6th graders at the junior high as well, with transportation there and then transportation home from the junior high as well. So that is how that works out to enhance more numbers in a centralized music ensemble location.
The content flex time continuing to be built into the schedule. Like, I think you've seen the amount of time that we need to devote to literacy, because that's like the primary goal of equity, is that all of our kids can read, and that's a lot of time, and over 2 hours every day. And math is like at least 80 minutes, and so that leaves a little bit of time. And I love the teacher magic part of this that Sadie spoke to, and that is at our K-8 schools as well. Tech, same as the other schools. Kinders have a cart that they can access in the classroom when we need it. 1st through 6th grade will have an iPad device. Mostly the stay at school 5th and 6th grade. Sometimes there's special projects that they use and they take them home. And then 7th and 8th grade will have Chromebooks, and Canvas will be the learning management system. that will have also 5th and 6th graders start with Canvas. So. Okay, so again, I think I just want to reiterate how important play is in our day. I remember there was a time in our education when there was pushback of recess, we need more academics, and it would be really hard for me to ever work in a place where we didn't have recess. It's absolute critical, this uninterrupted, not a lot of adult-driven time for kids to explore, and so at all of our schools, there continues to be dedicated recess time. A brief look at schedules, and I'll just say this for the, probably a million times I'll say it, this is just an example. This doesn't mean that lunch is gonna be for the K4 at 12:10. This is like an example of what a day might look like, and here's how it unfolds. And these, if you look at our other schedules, that K4 is the same across, 5-6 is the same, and 7-8 is similar to the junior high as much as we can get.
I just want to point out on the schedules and the mock-ups of the schedules that you've seen, the other piece that has been done is logistics planning for spaces in all of our buildings for both the specials of music, PE, art, and STEAM, and where all of these things fit within the structures of our buildings. And so we have a plan of how that works and how this fits into every single building for our K6s and our K8s. So these mock-up schedules were done. But then on the back side of that, which our staff will start to see pretty soon, is how all of this fits in the spaces that we have logistically, and it does work. Okay, and now Nikki is going to join us for high school updates.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikki. I am the high school coordinator, and I use she, her pronouns. So I'm going to give you a more condensed update because high school is in a different phase of planning for changes, and that is in part because right now our students are just completing forecasting, which is course selection for the following year. So we are already starting to get those numbers and talk about building schedules, and so our changes really come in the following school year. So I want to share what's going to be the same, what's going to be different, and kind of what we're working on and the steps ahead for the high school team. So what will be the same, a lot of this is driven by diploma requirements as we will continue to have core classes and we will have students taking electives that will look the same. Our schedule will be the same, that's not in there, but we will still have a 7-period schedule and we'll be on that all and then alternating block day schedule. We will continue to have students have access to college level coursework, that's dual credit and AP, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. They'll continue to have access to extracurriculars. We know those are important to them from our surveys we've given. And then we will also continue with one-to-one Chromebooks and Canvas as our learning management system. So those things are staying the same, even as we're planning for changes in the 27-28 school year. So what will be different is we will be working on creating articulated pathways connected to student interests and career. So many of you have heard about like our CTE programs, and we just saw some pretty amazing data related to our CTE completer graduation rates. And I think what I've heard from meeting with students is we don't do a great job yet of explaining to them our articulated pathways and how those build from beginning to intermediate to advanced skills and prepare them for college and career. And so that's some work that we have ahead of us, is doing a better job at articulating our pathways. We are also talking about new pathways aligned to student career aptitudes and interests. So we use something called Use Science regionally. It's a career learning system. And the data from that career learning system says that most of our pathways we have align to the students' interests. And then we also have a few gaps. And those gaps are in business and entrepreneurship, natural resource management, and then arts, entertainment, and design. And so those are some new pathways that teachers will be talking about creating. We're also talking about more advanced course offerings. I had the opportunity to partner with Laura on a survey that we gave to high school students at the 2 comprehensive high schools about their interests in AP classes. And I can't remember, I didn't look it up before I talked, but we had a lot of student respondents. But we have a pretty good list of classes that students are interested in taking in the future. And so that will be shared with teachers when we meet on March 9th and start diving into this work. And then the other thing that will be a change is we have a lot of community-based learning, especially in our CTE spaces. But what I have heard from students from the survey we gave in the fall about those meaningful experiences is that they want to do more learning in the community. They want internship experiences. They want job shadow experiences. And so that's a growth area for us in the next year to kind of identify who those partners are and how we want to partner with them and expand our student experiences and learning beyond the classroom walls. So, drivers behind the change, similar to what you heard about changes at the other levels. We have a belief that smaller school experiences lead to connection. And so I talked about continuing with core and having electives, but those electives being in a more articulated pathway. What we foresee is students will choose a pathway. Say, for example, an existing one we have now is in health sciences, where students will take these courses in sequence that build upon one another. When students go, I want to go into a career in health science and get into that pathway and continue through the pathway to build those skills, they're also essentially creating a small learning community. And so we know that our high schools are big, and we feel like those pathways, if we do a better job of articulating them and helping students to select ones that are tied to their interests, they'll stay in there and have that greater sense of connection. Of course, our CTE graduation data is another driver. We know that when students find something that's interesting and relevant to them, they're more likely to attend and stay in school and graduate. I mentioned wanting to expand our access to advanced coursework. So the AP student data is another driver. The student experience data from the survey we gave in fall is another driver. And then also just looking at what our students say their interests are and what they think their next steps are in our career management system. So those are kind of the pieces of information that we're using to drive our changes. And then what we are also doing is getting feedback. And so what the phase we're in right now is getting feedback from our stakeholders. So I've shared the innovation team's plan, the high school model, and these ideas I'm sharing with you with the leadership teacher teams at CV and CHS. I'm working on planning one for College Hill. I also went and shared with leadership students at CV, and then we got feedback on the pathways from our students in grades 6 through 12 that are in our SAFE group. We did a whole group meeting at Crescent Valley. So we're in this phase of getting feedback and adjusting and getting into some work. And so our next steps are to share the model more widely. And so we'll be doing that on March 9th, which is our next non-school day for high school teacher professional development. On that day, we'll get feedback on the innovation team ideas. Teachers are going to start working on alignment of their core pathways. So right now, if you look at pathways in language arts, in math, in science, in health, in PE, pretty much in everything, there are these outlier courses. We understand that some courses may only be able to be offered at one campus, and we may have to bus students, but we want those pathways to the courses to be more aligned, because we think that when there's multiple ways to get to courses, it creates more singletons, which makes it harder to fill courses. So alignment is a big part of our work because it can lead to stronger class enrollment. And when you have stronger class enrollment, because you have aligned pathways, you can offer more courses. Clarity of career connected pathways, so our CTE and elective teachers will just be working on articulating their pathways, and then we're looking at ways to improve our college level opportunities. We talk a lot about AP and dual credit. I've shared with you some of the budget work that I do. Our high school success funding, while it calls out AP and dual credit, it also talks about improving student opportunities to take classes through online sources at our local community colleges and our universities. So I just surveyed many students who are taking classes at the university to find out like what's working well, why did you make that choice, what are some of the barriers, and then I'll be working through how to better partner with those folks in our community to expand offerings in that way. And that is part of our high school success charge. And then, as I mentioned before, we're also looking at how to strengthen and develop more community partnerships.
All right. So I want you to think back to those arrows at the beginning and think about like where you noticed those starting to kind of start to align in different ways and point in different ways. A few pieces I wanted to highlight in our big picture. One is we're looking at building some consistency across all of our programming so that there's equal opportunity and equity for students no matter what school they go to, that they get a rigorous and balanced education at any school. And then from that baseline, we know that schools have their own culture and their own pieces that make those school communities unique, and then that enables them to do those pieces in coherence with our Corvallis promise and our values and our vision and mission. In the vertical alignment that we are starting to hear about and see, a couple of the highlights there, if you can remember, we talked about DLI that we started with, and that is a K-12 alignment of our programming for dual language immersion. You heard this through line of relationships and connection that starts really intentional and builds from our morning circles and closing circles to homerooms, to advisor, to the small house communities, to the small cohorts and the CTE pathways at the high school. You heard through lines of foundational academics that are rigorous, starting at kindergarten for foundations all the way up to expanded pathways and multiple options for students in all core areas up through expanding into junior high, and then more expansion and more opportunities beyond even our classroom walls into the high school level. We talked about this new addition of alignment of starting with STEAM at the K4 with that engineering and hands-on type of learning that leads into career exploration that builds in 5-6. Then that career exploration goes deeper in 7-8 to help students enter into high school with a clear idea of what they might be interested in because they've had so many experiences before for their CTE pathway and post-secondary plans that they hope to have. So that's just some of the pieces of the alignment that I wanted to highlight. Yeah. So we talked a lot, and we wanted to come back to, there's a lot of things that are the same. Like a lot of things that we've done really well, we're going to keep doing well. And we've received feedback from students, from staff, from our community. We look at our data, and we constantly look at ways to improve what we're doing. And I think you've seen some of those results in some of these pieces. So I want to highlight what's new, and what's new has come from all of you in this room, from people watching, from our district, from our community, from both our data, from our feedback that we've received, and what we've worked through to create these new opportunities. So, new or coming back, open libraries, full-time staff from 7:30 to 3 p.m. at our K6 and K8 schools by library media technicians. So we're excited about that because it opens up a lot of different opportunities than we've currently had recently. So one of those things that it opens up is us to re-embed and re-establish a focus on digital citizenship with like created lessons that we have district adopted through those schools. And so we know that learning to navigate the online world in a safe way is critically important. And so that is a part that can be embedded in this. This also allows flexibility within our schedules for our K4 teachers to schedule in library visits whenever they want to. It also allows open libraries for kids before and after school to come to and throughout their school days. And then it gets more structured at those a 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade type of times where students start to have more scheduled lessons in the library time. Is this me too? Okay. And so we are fortunate to have so many amazing and passionate specialists in our district who really care a lot about their area of work and what they do. And so some of these changes in how we've created our models and our systems have led to, which is new, is a year-long art for all sixth graders, not as an elective for sixth graders, but year-long 45 minutes every week of art for sixth graders. And I know our art PLC has great plans that they have planned on what that looks like for sixth graders to prepare them for junior high art electives to get ready for that. It also adds in, not as an elective, but just general music for all sixth graders for a full year to continue to do that. And then we talked already about those embedded ensemble electives for the fifth and sixth graders too. And a lot of our work that we've done, I hope you've started to see a little bit, is expanding options and access beyond just a typical school day so that students in our community have lots of ways to access different experiences and they've had opportunities to do so before.
All right, new will be the opportunity for our fifth and sixth grade students to have a dedicated science block that will also integrate some of those career exploration. I think at fifth and sixth level grade, they call it career awareness kits, and that are all aligned to the high school CTE pathway. Is that correct, Nikki? Clusters, that was the word I was looking for. And this just hasn't been something we've been able to offer before. And so to have that dedicated time is exciting, and it will be able to build on the STEAM work that is happening in K4. Yeah.
Go ahead. So Amy will talk more about this, but we talked at the previous board meeting about our expanded pathways and options there. And in there, I know there's questions about what are our current students right now? How do they place into those pathways? And we have answers to that, and we're going to be working through sharing that with our community at different family nights we'll talk about. But what we didn't necessarily talk about was how we support students who need more support in math as well.
Yes, I'm so excited. We've been looking at our math data, and as we look at reading in elementary, it has been more natural to have reading intervention and built-in reading support, and math, it has been harder for that to happen. And we're at a point now where we can utilize our Title I funds. Thankfully, we still have Title I funds to support a math coach at every elementary school. So we'll be working with teachers, posting positions soon, and thinking about that group of teachers being supported math instruction, core instruction, and then also interventions at all of our Title I schools. So I'm super excited about that.
Just to recap some of the junior high structural changes, we have a full year for the science and social studies, and that's based in the semester schedule, so that's a win right there. We have expanded elective options by going to the 7-period schedule. That gives us a little more time in the day. And as Byron mentioned, for students who are able to take the 0-period ensemble, that opens up another year-long course that they could take as well. And the career exploration lessons, the career and college ready, those align with, as Nikki spoke to, the articulated pathways that they're working on. And so students will be able to do hands-on activities that last about 10 days per activity that are all aligned to these different pathways. So they could be like, do a veterinarian kit, or they could do a cosmetology kit, right? Whatever those interest them at the time as they move through, to just kind of figure out what the different things are before they get into high school, where they're thinking more about what am I going to be doing. And then the houses and the cohort model, right? Bringing that down to small groups of trusted and relationship building, and just a sense of belonging for all of the students in the building.
Sports. So thinking about access to athletics, and so we have been working through our plans for that. Our high school athletic directors are coordinating our athletics for the junior high, and so as we work through those, more details as those seasons come up will be shared, and where those locations will happen. But right now, what we know, the first thing coming up is looking at cross country. That includes 6th graders. Remember how the buses come to the junior high for music ensembles and for the Boys and Girls Club? Well, they also will include students who want to come and do cross country at the junior high as well. And so as we work through those, our athletic directors will start to share out those opportunities for our students in our different athletic areas.
All right. Again, this through line that we've talked about with STEAM and career and CTE, I think one thing that I want to point out about the K4 STEAM is we have been working to try to have some project-based learning, and it has been not as easy to come by. We haven't had the time necessarily or the structure, and to be able to have an opportunity where we can have science, tech, engineering, art, and math all kind of thematically and very hands-on time for all of our K4 kiddos who need that play and that exploration to build their muscle, and especially with engineering. And so that is just a little bit about the K4. And then the K6, we're continuing to align with community partners for science and outdoor education, partners like Mary's River Watershed and Salmon Watch and Corvallis Environmental Center, and align those with specific grade levels so kids have an experience that's outside of our schools, and that those are also aligned to that potential college and career. So it's again taking those arrows that were maybe in the middle to get them a lot more clear so kids can get that real life experience.
And then that curriculum that I just talked about, and for the career alignment for students in 5 through 8, they're going to be exploring learning experiences that are connected to those high school pathways. And this gives them time from 5 through 8, right, to be able to explore, to figure out and find out what their passions are and what they like, and understanding that, oh, this career might be more than just math and science, right? It might have this element too as well that I am excited about. So they'll have all 4 of those years to be able to figure out what things excite them and where their passions lie.
So I've already talked briefly about these articulated pathways. I think one additional thing I want to share is I'm part of this nationwide rural communities pathway grant. I probably got the words wrong. That involves all of these community colleges and K-12 partners from across the country. And today we met for 90 minutes virtually to talk about like what is working and what are those promising practices. And they pointed to a place. They said, we went and visited these schools where they have these career and college connected programs that start like in the 6th grade, and then they really actually connect to the high school. And so when I heard that, they said, we just haven't seen that clarity really anywhere. And they were visiting schools in Tennessee. And I thought, I came back and jumped into Byron's office and said, this is amazing. This is what they were talking about. And I thought, this is exactly what we're planning to do. Additionally, they shared some data that reflected that when students take CTE, paired with AP or dual credit by the age of 24, I think they're earning 16% more than other students who don't do those 2 concentration areas. And so when I think about our focus at the high school on getting students ready for college through college level coursework and these articulated pathways, it points me to think that we're doing the right work at the high school and making the changes where it will matter.
So go back one slide on there. Sorry, yeah, not yet. So I just want to say on this piece about the integrated STEAM career exploration CTE, that this comes directly from a lot of our innovation team work. And I think this is kind of a thing that was centered on to think about when we started to think about moving from an industrial model of how our schools were traditionally built to what does a future ready model look like. This is one of the things that came from that, is what are the skills and knowledge we want our students to have to be ready for life outside of a K-12 system. And this is what we really started to center on, is if we can start in kindergarten with this foundation of exploratory pieces around STEAM, if we can guarantee that every student in K-6 each year gets to do something in our community and build a partnership with a community partner and learn in that expertise area, then if we have areas where students can explore different types of industrial learning and kits around career readiness, and then they can be in an articulated pathway for a CTE to go through high school, we think that could be future ready. And I think this is a thing that we're really excited about. Yeah. So kind of bookending us here is if we think back to the beginning of our presentation and your booklet you have there of our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, of our values, our goals, our commitments and promises, and our one profile of a graduate, our belief is that we can do this with this model. And that is what this model exemplifies, is our promise and what we can offer to our students in our community, because that is what our work here is to do, is to offer every single student the best opportunities we can to help them grow into the people that they want to become. So we're not done. Like, there's a lot to do still. This is a framework. Now it's making that come alive. And so our next steps are thinking about our curriculum planning and our resource development, our innovation teamwork and all of our teams. That's our next big shift. It's like we're going to move in now to putting all of the meat to these bones. Is that how you say that? Okay, yes. And we're going to start building this out with our resources and curriculum that will make this come alive. We also know there are so many questions about this. Like, I have questions about things, and I've been helping plan all of this. And so to answer those questions, we want to be really available to everyone. And so 2 things are going to happen. Starting in March, we're doing a rotation to every single school, and we'll be at every single staff meeting, and we're going to answer the staff's questions about this plan. And then in April and May, we're going to be at every single school in the evening for families and community members. And we'll be there, and we'll answer questions about this plan to all of our community members and families there. So there'll be lots of opportunities to come and ask questions and get answers for these pieces. The next thing that's going to be new for us that we'll be doing when we start our community nights is for all of our community members, we're going to do a very transparent curriculum handbook for all of our grades. And so the drafts are done. I've read them all. These 3 wonderful people have created them, and we will be sharing those to our community once they're finalized at all of our family nights. And in that, it's going to tell you how we do all of this stuff. Like all these things we just talked about that we're promising to do for our community and our students, then we'll show you in our handbooks what we're using to do all of those pieces. So if you want to take a picture of this is going to come out to our community too, but for community members watching or here too, here's the dates and the times. We have a busy April, but for our family nights, I just want to make sure that was really clear to folks, because we want to be accessible to you. We want to answer your questions that you have. And we have it here just a little bit later because we also want to do that with staff first. And we know staff will be learning their new building assignments and things. And then after that is done, then we'll be at all of our school communities in the evenings to answer your questions. And that leads us to your questions. So that was a lot. There's a lot to think about. And so we're going to pause and go from there.
Really quick, before we take a break, before we do questions, I think we need to take a short break. That was a lot of amazing information, and I think that we just need to shift real quick. And I would like the board to not take a really long break. Let's take a very short, if we get back in the next 5 minutes, we can have more time for discussion. everyone, and thanks for the time to take a really short break before we ask questions. I know the board has plenty of questions, I'm sure. I know I have lots of questions, and just wanted to thank you all for taking the time this evening to do the presentation. I know the community and the board have been waiting for a little while to see what was going on, and Shauna and I have a little bit of insight from attending the innovation team meetings, but we still didn't know the full details, of course, because things change and adjust, and it's appreciating you all being here. I have a lot to say, but I will cut myself off and open the floor for the board members to ask questions, and our student rep if you have questions too. We could, or we can popcorn. If we can do one question at a time, so prioritize your question, and then that way we all get to ask at least one. Yeah, I'm good with that. Okay. We'll start over on this side. Do you have questions, Laura?
So I'm a little curious about the house system for, is it just 5th and 6th graders, or is it junior high?
It's for 7th and 8th.
Okay.
At the junior high.
Okay. And what kind of inspired that system?
Looking to bring 2 different school communities together into one is part of that. And how do we help them break it down so it's smaller, so it doesn't feel like just this large, because there's going to be about 700 students in the building, right? And so how do we keep that, instead of feeling overwhelming going from a K-6 building where I know all the teachers and all the kids pretty much, and moving into that junior high, how can we just narrow that space down for them where they'll still be able to, during their elective periods and during the PE periods and things, interact with students from other houses, so it's not like you only know these kids, but for their core classes, making that world just a little smaller, a little bit more comfortable, and a little bit more sense of belonging for all of the students.
Yeah, I think in the innovation team work, we really leaned into the fact that we wanted it to feel like a family environment, smaller setting within a larger building. And so, yeah, really we're thinking, how can we come up with a way that they have teachers that they have consistently within each house? Those kids will all have the same core teachers. And so they get to move together, as a group within that. It helps build student connection. They're not just going all over the school. The other piece is how the classrooms are laid out. Those houses will be the classrooms all together. So they're not having to travel. Oh, I'm upstairs here and I'm going down the stairs all the way around. So it hopefully will also help their travel within the building be more limited, except for the electives where they're going to go outside of their house.
The thing to add to that, based on feedback, is we went real far one way in our first plans, and we're like, you're in a house all day with the same cohort. That's awesome. And the feedback from our teachers were like, kids need a little more variety than that. And so in the 7-period day, 4 of the periods are with your cohort from your house, and then the other 3 periods are mingled with other groups and in electives and other pieces that way. So it blends with those pieces.
Hi, great presentation. Quick question about personnel people. Obviously, new STEAM specialist and I guess a couple other special positions. Are they coming from existing teachers transitioning to those roles, or do we need additional certified staff?
Melissa can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're in the middle of our staffing model, and all positions are always open to current staff. So we will definitely encourage current staff to apply for coaching positions or STEAM positions if they want. And if we need more, we'll post outside of our district. So probably start local and then go.
And that STEAM special at the K4, I've heard lots of interest from teachers who teach in the arts. And so I think there's like a potential of a really cool thing that could happen of having teachers who specialize in the arts, if they're interested, which I've heard from several who are, being people who help create that and be part of that teaching to really embed the arts in the STEAM pieces of our model.
Okay. Thank you. There's no way we're going to get through all of our questions, so I'm going to just try to choose one. We'll see. You're probably going to get long emails from us. I wanted to better understand this, the relationship between the with the orchestra, the bonus period or the zero period that's happening at the 7th and 8th grade, which is the first period at the other schools. So when I heard that, it sounds like only the junior high is going to get an extra class, and that the K-8 students will be using they'll be using a core class period 1, but there's not going to be an additional class for them because that's part of their regular day. Did I understand that right?
It's yes, and we're building that first period across both the K-8s as the elective. So that it won't be a core, it'll be the elective.
Okay.
So that's really just them choosing that for an elective.
So, okay, so then what I'm saying is then the 7th, 8th graders at the junior high will have access to 8 classes, but the 7th and 8th graders at the K-8 will still only have access to the 7 classes. They won't have an 8th class. There's not a way for them to get the 8th class. Is that right? Okay. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure I was taking that incorrectly.
But on the other end of that, at the end of the day, 5th and 6th graders in those schools could come over, and that's time beyond their school day. Okay. It's trying to find the way
so they're
to
getting an extra.
After
the 5th, 6th graders from K-8 get a bonus.
Can you make sure you turn your mic on?
Yeah, sorry. So at the K-8, the 5th, 6th graders benefit from an extra period.
Yes.
And at the 7th, 8th, it's the junior high that benefits from the extra period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's all of our K-6 schools, not just the K-8. So all the 5, every 5th grader, every 6th grader.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. There was so much great information coming out tonight. So just an incredible amount of work that's come through from staff who are here as well as those who aren't here. And I know that you've taken into account a lot of data that's been collected, not just this year, but in years past, really looking at what are community, family, student, staff priorities. So thank you so much for putting all that together for us. I have a whole list of questions, so I will just start with one. I'm really thinking about families who are making decisions around the narrow transfer window that's happening now. And so seeing that there are some great family night opportunities to ask those questions. One question I have specific to that is with the K through 8 model for families who are considering that versus 7-8 junior high, how many electives could feasibly be offered at the K through 8 sites? So it seems like there is that expanded opportunity with music. Then thinking about other electives, there are lots of opportunities there. Students will forecast for what they're interested in, but there might be a limited number offered, and I'm just curious what that might look like.
So based on the schedule at the K-8 building, they would have, with PE being in there, they would have 1 class a semester that would be an elective class.
So I guess just, would there only be 1 elective that's offered that all students are opting into versus
sorry.
during that time, would there actually be choices
there
for
would
students?
Be 3. Yeah,
there
would be 3 electives
period.
offered each semester for them to be able to choose from.
Thank
and
you.
those 3 are based on the interest survey that they've taken.
Okay. And if families have questions, sorry, I know it's a tag-on question, about models now before family nights are available, how should they ask those questions?
Folks can reach out to me, and then we can get the answers to people or connect them to people who can answer the questions for them. Yeah.
Thank you for being here, and what a great presentation, and so exciting, so exciting. My question, I have many as others, is about, we talked about the social emotional piece being embedded in the middle school, in the junior high. And so I'm, you know me, that was always my big thing, and I'm just wondering how that's going to happen, and are we getting rid of, do we still have sources of strength at the middle school or right now, and or there's another similar curriculum, Character Strong, right? Are we getting rid of that, or?
We're actually talking and looking at second step.
Okay.
And putting that one into place. With the schedule, right, it's this balance between making sure they have elective opportunities in that 7 period and they still have the connections. And so we're looking to have like the first, and this is still details to be worked out, right? But thinking of like if the first period or the second period each day is that day where those focuses are brought in, right? So then all the teachers that are teaching through that period would help bring those SEL lessons to life and put them into place. I believe that also the Stephanie and Kalia as the administrators are working on an idea of what does it look like building wide for that social emotional learning to happen, and how can they support all of the students. They're looking at peer tutors, they're looking at restorative justice, right? And how can they build this new school that we have with that in mind?
Thank you.
So first, a request. It's around communication. That when we're thinking about how we're communicating out what's happening, that we're involving parents and students to see what information are they looking for, how are they looking for that to be presented. So it's prepared ahead of time before the family nights, so that we're not saying, oh, I'll get back to you with an answer, which kind of can feel dismissive. And so that we're really checking in. So if we can incorporate that to see how do people want to receive it and what do they want to know, I'd really love to see that. My actual question is to say, all right, we have 2 K-8 models. I mean, for the rest of the year, I might as well have a flag that says, what about the K-8s? Because that's going to be my thing. How are we building in the 3 math pathway opportunities in an equitable way also to the K-8s?
So we have several mock schedules that we've been working on to make sure that we can have it, and it does align by having a math science teacher, right? That's what we're looking at for the junior high and the 7-8 teachers. And so that math science teacher is just going to be teaching 2 math blocks. One might be an algebra and one might be a foundations of geometry course, so that they're available and students have access to those pathways.
Yeah, and I would just add, it's similar to electives. Like, so electives are based on interest and then forecasting. And then a similar way for our math pathways at 7-8 and the K-8, 7-8's at K-8 too. It will be based on the student assessment and where students placed into how we offer all those courses as well.
Here's what I'm afraid of. You know, there's fewer students. We have a fewer bunch to say that there might be fewer kids forecasting into the enhanced and the accelerated pathway, so that just because there's fewer students at their school that there wouldn't be enough to forecast in for a full class, so then those students would be essentially eliminated from having those pathways, and that we're saying that there's truly an equitable pathway considering the smaller school sizes to make sure that those options are genuinely available to every student across our schools.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I said. But in the K-8s, the other thing that we have available are multiple options for students in our math pathways for a flipped classroom design as well. And so the other thing that we have been building out are asynchronous courses, and that happens a lot at College Hill right now. That works really well, where a teacher might be teaching some groups of kids. So if there's maybe if there's just a few kids that are ready for one pathway and a few that are ready for another pathway, they might be teaching and then have the flip model where they're doing some asynchronous work through an asynchronous course, and they teach the other group and they kind of go back and forth. So I think there's ways that we can do that. I think, though, to plan those pieces, we have to have the number of kids so we can essentially plan for those pieces too.
Quick commentary to say thank you. I think this is, I don't want to say ever, but in the history of school districts, I don't know in memory any time where we had such phenomenal structural change in terms of how the programming is going to line up with our promise, with our goals. It's really impressive. And I want to say thank you for the innovation team, everybody who contributed to it, but also to the community, to the points I mentioned earlier. There are themes and threads of feedback we have received every budget cycle in the past 6 years, basically, that I can see now being addressed in really creative and innovative ways. So thank you. On that note, and knowing education, measurements of success in education sometimes can be messy and hard to capture. My question is, and then this is probably also community facing, we're making those changes and we're using so many changes to improve outcomes, and we have our promise of graduation rates, the profile of graduates being met. And in the interim, we always measure the student well-being through Youth Truth and all other metrics. My question is, next year as we start implementing, is there any measurements of success that will help us say, well, correlating with this kind of aspect to the change, we're seeing improvements here. Correlating with that aspect, we're seeing improvement there. Are we going to be able to capture that one way or the other?
I can kind of narrow it down to one I'm paying attention to, as I've seen a decline in our science scores. And so I'm interested to see, as we implement a STEAM and CTE pathway and actually have year-long science and science blocks, I'm interested to see if we see an increase in our science scores, because we've seen a decline in that, which also is part of what we've used to look at what we need to do differently in some ways as well. So I'm interested in that. I'm interested in some of our math scores by expanding some options, and also providing interventions and math coaches, I think, is another piece.
One other thing I want to share is keeping in mind that this group of educators are going to continue to meet for 2 years, right? The innovation team was meant to be a 2-year process. And so we're also going to continue to get feedback from the folks implementing the change, who will continue to come together monthly and give feedback, and to answer some of those questions. Like the big thing they have to do now is like, how do we take the framework and how do we make sure that we put meat on the bone so we're ready for the fall? But then once the fall comes, how are we going to make sure that we are making progress and truly implementing this plan throughout the school year? So that was an intentional decision we made last summer to make sure that it was a 2-year process.
I think one other measure I want to add, something we've been tracking at the high school, and it is part of the Youth Truth data set, is the statement is something like, what I learn in school is connected to things outside of my life or relevant to me in some way. It's something like that. We've been tracking that at the high school. So we also were looking at the data from our middle schools. And I think that's another data set as we add in that career and college thread that we'll want to track as a metric.
Wonderful.
A measure that we're working on, and so we just started the brainstorming process of this, and it aligns to a strategy from our board goals around a profile of a graduate, is we're working on what metrics are in place for each of those pieces of skills and knowledge on the profile of a graduate, and then how do we measure that? And so that is a thing that will be coming in the future, and we just started that brainstorm innovation team, and all of our principals started to make a list of, on all of those bullet points you see on there, we made a list of what could we use to measure that and how could we measure that. So we're starting that work too.
And finally, one of the areas for the board goals around the academic piece was the implementation of a portrait of a graduate. So in terms of your goals and accomplishments, then you can check that one off too.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I have some questions. I did want to start with some things I really appreciated about it though, and just mention that I know a lot of this was made possible because of some tough decisions we made in the fall, and I don't think this would have happened without that. And it doesn't make it any easier, this transition, but I think I think that there's some great opportunities that have been built upon, because I've seen year after year everybody just trying to be like, we have to figure out how to make this work within this existing model with limited funding, limited staff, losing staff, and being able to see the excitement of teachers and staff and the innovation team that really like made my day every time, because I seen everybody like just really excited about this, and it showed the passion, and get to see you all be able to say what would education be like possibly here if we were able to try something different and still help the students get where they need to be. So I just wanted to mention that that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about spending time with the team. And the flexibility for the teachers to work together is something that really stood out, because it seems like I'm a teacher too, but in a different setting, and it can be isolating. So seeing a way anytime teachers can come together, I think is really great. I think it'll have really good benefits for the students. That digital citizenship piece, when I think about the role of online bullying, even within our own district, that's so critical. Not only that, but the way that kids are targeted online is really prevalent right now. And so I'm really excited about that being a possibility too, with bringing back the library techs and the math coaches, of course. I think having them in there, we haven't been able to see some of the math work for that individualized learning that needs to happen in K5 especially. So I'm excited, well, in K4 now, well, K6. Yeah, K6. I was like, wait, nope, K6 to the bands, but I think that's going to be really nice to see that come in too. So my question, thanks for my long list of things I appreciated. I have a lot of questions too, and one of them, I'm hoping that you can explain a little bit more about the career education work that's happening in 5-6, because I heard a little bit about it with the kits, and I heard you mention it, but I feel like I might know a little bit more than other folk as a result of the meeting. So I'm wondering if y'all can talk a little bit about what that might look like.
Yeah, so we're in the process of getting samples of all of it. Like the next step is curriculum and looking at curriculum, but the kits are like an hour. Each area that I had up there is 4 hours of exploration and like kind of centers based. So right now we have science kits, and the science kits live in our CIMC and are managed by our staff there. And so these kits would be similarly managed. So here's what they are, here's how many we have, and then go out to classrooms, and they would rotate through all of them and then go to a different one. And the kits we'll choose to purchase are the ones that are aligned to the clusters that will move forward. And you,
yeah, Kim and I had an opportunity to like experience one of the 5-6 kits on a recent trip, and we did the forensics kit. So there were different stations. So one was like you were analyzing, you were doing chromatography and analyzing ink, and then other people were analyzing fingerprints. And so you're looking at this evidence, and the lesson was like something like who stole my dog or something. And so the teacher, had this picture of their dog and like, well, who took it? And so they had kind of an intriguing like problem, and then the students were using these kits to try and like solve the crime using some basic forensics activities.
Thanks. I think it was just helpful for people to hear like an example of what that might look like. But yeah, were you saying something? Sorry, Byron.
Oh, I just want to add the piece of kind of where this exploration or thinking about this came from is we surveyed high school students on their most memorable experiences from middle school and elementary school, and the top things in all of the responses, besides their friends, was all about hands-on things connected to the real world, things they could build and make and do, and like experiment with. And so that is where these ideas came from. That way. And so it's, again, just like you saw with the electives of like, this is what students get to choose what they are interested in, and then we can forecast for those instead of us the other way around. This is the same type of a thing. Like students are asking for these types of things, and so we need to provide them.
And these things are already happening in bits and pieces. Like Mercedes was saying, you might have the one teacher in your hallway that's really passionate about STEAM, but you don't like have that same gift or whatever. Our school counselor and one of our teachers planned a really amazing career awareness week for us recently, but it was an add-on and it was just 1 week, but kids loved it and they were excited about talking about the things that they were exploring. And we had guest speakers come in from the community to share about their careers, and we had an assembly, and it was a really memorable, amazing week for kids, and we're looking at being able to do that throughout all of our schools and throughout the school year, not just if you have a couple of people that are really passionate at spending extra time putting that together.
Say one more thing. Sorry, there's so much to share. The other part is we heard from our industry leaders in our community. This Corvallis Public Schools Foundation helped us gather a luncheon and sponsor that with several industry leaders in our community. And this is aligned to like what they're asking for students to come to ready. Like, you should come be able to work in our auto shop, where we hope that you know how to use Microsoft Word. That's a whole other story. But that is what we also heard from our industry leaders in our community.
I was waiting for you to bring up Microsoft Word. But does the board wish to extend for one more question? Or for one more question from...
I would prefer to email because I don't have one more question. I have 18 more questions.
That makes sense. I just am thinking while we have them here, and there's also community that has questions that we might be able to ask for them. So if the board was okay for 10 minutes maybe, and we won't do everybody, just like
Yeah, one question, like 1 minute or 2 minutes question and answer, basically.
as fast as answers as we can possibly. Maybe one person answer from the panel. Does that work? Okay, I think, yeah, sorry, Jude. Okay.
Okay, my question is, are there opportunities for extracurriculars at the 5-6 level, or even the junior high level that's beyond band and athletics, like robotics and things like that?
Possibly, and we haven't started that planning yet. A lot of that comes from the staff in those buildings, and we're just not at that point yet.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question that I think the community would be interested in hearing, and this is a chance for us to put that out there. So, in the K6, yeah, okay. So in K6, where you've added the STEAM elective, and there was a lot of conversation in the community about, and from some folks within the music staff about whether or not we should bring back music twice a week, and or should we have this other elective opportunity? And sounds like you'll be able to do some exciting stuff with STEAM, but there must have been some rationale behind how you landed on that. Could you walk us through the choice to go with STEAM rather than to add additional music time for K6?
So that's a long answer. And I think the abbreviated version in that is I go back to those levers, right, that we started with in that presentation. And there's a lot of things that are all equally important that are at those pieces. A driver for some of our pieces are some points of data. Some of the points of data I kind of refer to as our declining science scores, and thinking around that. The other pieces is the data around CTE graduation rates and building those skills starting at a young age. The other data is around from our student data. So like our youth truth data and also our student survey that we did for high schoolers is like the things that they said they want and remember are those things that are very aligned to STEAM. We did a staff survey, and I know this feels heavy to hear sometimes too, and the staff survey provided feedback on all staff. We had like 267, I think, responses from teachers and other staff members on what they wanted to see when they saw our first plan of our model, and we adjusted a lot from that feedback. And STEAM was the number one thing that our staff said they appreciated in the model, that they think we needed, that we've been missing. And the honest in that too is music twice a week did not come up as a main theme in the feedback, besides from some responses. But the main theme from our staff was also STEAM.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Therese. You answered or asked the first part of my next question too, so I'll grow on that one a little bit. And sometimes it's so exciting to see the things that are being brought back, like library time and all of these new expansion areas. And I think in wearing my personal hat rather than my school board hat, also had that feeling of like, oh, music twice a week is something that we know was cut last year. there was hope that that might be something that comes back, and knowing there are other opportunities coming. And I think one continued worry I've heard is that STEAM sometimes comes out of STEM rather than STEAM. And I heard some really clear intention, Byron, just in saying that there's interest maybe from arts educators to be teaching there, because folks who don't have an arts background or a music background may not have those skills or may not have that knowledge to really be able to embed and make something STEAM versus STEM. So I'm just curious around, are there other ways that there might be some really intentional embedding of arts into that STEAM elective? Are there ways that current music and arts educators will have input or be able to offer feedback into what that looks like?
Well, it's a timely question that you asked. I met with our engineering teacher at Crescent Valley earlier today, and we actually were talking specifically about STEAM and STEAM at the high school. And he talked about the pushback he got by adding in the art component. And he talked about how important that is for like using your creativity to solve problems through collaboration with others. And when I think back to the industry lunch that we have, collaboration, problem solving, those were two big skills that our local employers talked about as well. And he just said, I think art adds a different access point to that. And I just, your question's timely because that wasn't what I was there to talk about, and it was something that came up as part of our conversation, but he just said it's such an important addition, the art to the STEM.
And that's a high priority in our curriculum planning, is the feedback from our art and music folks too, and how we plan our STEAM curriculum.
So when you were talking about like the grades 7, 8, their programs and each house and all of that, it's going to require extra teacher planning, my guess, or how are we going to do that with like PLCs, or how are they going to work together and have time to really plan out and, map things out? Sorry.
Yeah, so I think very intentional schedule building, those teachers being blocked together, they get the same prep. So if they have third period prep together and their classrooms are right next to each other, and they get to then plan their projects and how they're gonna utilize their classroom time. Even though, like, for me, it would be like science. I'm working with a science teacher. Well, how can we build a really cool project that is covering both of our standards? And that, to me, that's what I'm doing during my prep time. So now I get this person to bounce ideas off. I'm having third period prep with them. Maybe we don't work together every single day, but at least a couple days a week, we're going to be, sitting in each other's classroom, collaborating. And I think that's really cool and something that doesn't necessarily happen as schedules are built. In my world right now, I'm really happy if I get another math teacher that has the same prep as me, which usually doesn't happen.
Let me extend my adulations and how much I love this and how we've been talking about this profile of a graduate for 3 years, and then you put it in my hands. So thank you. And also putting on my personal interest hats. Okay, so from 5th grade through 12th grade, we have the opportunity for ensemble music for every student all the time. I love it. How are they getting, for students who aren't doing choir, where they are their instrument, how are they getting their instruments? Is there a barrier there?
One of the things I've talked with our music PLC a little bit about is an inventory of our instruments and what we have, and then looking forward to creating structures of how we maintain, keep inventory of our instruments, check instruments in and out in a more centralized way. And so that's the thing, like, to be continued, that we'll have more data on. Right now it's kind of school-based, and our music teachers work really well together and share, but it would be nice also to thinking ahead of like what are the inventories we have and what can we provide for students.
Just a tiny follow-up, thank you. If we're identifying like there's a need, like we don't have enough violins, would there be an opportunity for community members to come together to make sure that every student that wants to play an instrument can pick their instrument and play it?
Our school budgets, a lot of them at the secondary level have funds built in for those. I know like one school in particular funds a lot of instruments, and so we have some of those pieces built in. Looking at Ryan.
When the typically twice a year we have a joint meeting with the foundation, and we have one that we're working to schedule, actually a meeting tomorrow to schedule that. But one of the questions the foundation has for us is about how can they support the efforts of this transition. So hold that. I don't know that that's necessarily what they will want to fund or support, but just to kind of have that in mind and be thinking about those pieces that are going to be important for our communities in transition, and the support the foundation can provide us.
So the information nights in the schools happening soon, just to make sure it's clear, we're going to hear potentially more updates or more details than what we heard today, correct?
No, not necessarily. There more information will be shared, I guess, in the spring around curriculum pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what you're asking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those pieces will be shared later in the spring.
So later in spring,
Yeah.
more about the curriculum. Are those meetings exclusive for the current school community, or are they open for potentially, let's say, Letitia Carson parents and students for their new home school, potentially incoming kindergartner parents and homeschooling or private school parents who might be interested in learning more?
Yeah, so I mean, they're open to anyone, and we'll keep publishing those times and locations. And we also have kindergarten information night that happens every year, and that's on April 21st. That's why Lincoln's is after theirs, because that's the only date we could fit that in. And so it'll be kindergarten information night first, and then the rest of the family nights after that. And so there'll be the round of all kindergarten information nights for incoming kindergartners, and then all of the family nights at all of the other schools as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
I thought the family nights were just for parents, though, that have kids in the district, not like everybody else in the whole community. Just for like a clarification, isn't that what the family nights?
Well, that's the audience we're designing the content for.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was super clear. Yeah. Okay. I have a question. My question is, I'm going to ask a question. Hopefully we can answer, or it's not a super long. I don't think it's a super long answer, but we heard rigorous and we hear it over and over again. Do we have a definition of that we are leading by? And I know this is coming out soon, but if we can share that, that'd be nice.
I'll read it to you.
Thank you.
It comes actually from the work of Zaretta Hammond, is where that inspiration for this definition of rigorous comes. We put it under the achievement one on our 3 instructional promises for us to focus on. So as students engage in complex thinking and problem solving, paired with high support and intentional scaffolding to build intellectual independence, focusing on how to think rather than what to know.
So that's for folk to know, that's how we're defining the rigor in the district. Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear for everyone when they get this packet. And everybody, parents, or people who take care of kids in the district will be getting this tomorrow?
Yes, virtually as a PDF in our community email.
Okay, because I'm sure people have lots of questions because we have it up here, so it's easier to follow from the slides, but just want to make sure people knew when to expect this, so very soon. Okay, thank you so much for your time this evening and for all your work you all did putting this presentation together, and also the plan for education moving forward starting next year in Corvallis.
And for being in front of our kids bright and early.
Yeah, that too. Okay, for board, I know we have lots more questions. We should send those to Ryan. So if you have more questions, direct those to Ryan, and he will help with the answers of those. And then that's the last thing on our agenda. So with no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 9:01 p.m. Thank you.